In this episode of our photography review show, we're gonna review over 90 images from 40 photographers. Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of our photography review show. For those who don't know me, my name is Jacob Bors and I'm a professional photographer based in West Sussex, England. Now for the past 2 or 3 years I've been reviewing photos of my friends and colleagues, and because it was very popular we decided to offer it to our photography community here at Clever Photographer. Now we receive hundreds of images, and that's the reason why we had to limit the entries to 1 or 2 pictures per week per photographer, and that's the same reason why we take the show and usually divide it between 2 or 3 different parts. In the first parts we usually look at the landscape photographers, and in the other 2 parts we look at the rest of the photography styles. Now because we have many pictures to go through, we're gonna jump straight into it, but before that I have 2 reminders for you. First of all, don't forget about our Facebook photography group. It's called Clever Photographer Academy, and it's a place where we talk all kinds of photography. You can head there, search for us, Clever Photographer Academy on Facebook, and you can join our competitions there. You can ask us any photography questions. You can get reviews of your photos throughout the week, and just really join us for photography talk. So don't forget to head to the Facebook and join us at Clever Photographer Academy. Now the second thing is we have to look at the last week's photographer of the week, so let's jump into that. And yes, here comes your popular part where we look at the photographer of the week from the past episode. So now we're talking about 17th of January, and after quite some time we were able to recognize a macro photographer for our photographer of the week award. So the award goes to Guido Lieben, who is from Belgium, and Guido has been photographing for over 50 years, and obviously he covers many different photography styles, but it is really the macro photography and specifically the butterflies we were really struck by and we loved in the last episode. So I'm here on his Instagram, and again, as I mentioned, there is obviously lots of different photography styles, but when I scroll down and show you some of the butterflies, the incredible captures, the incredible details, and very lovely technical skills together with the composition skills really made his picture stand out, and we were really happy to recognize his images throughout this weekly award. So if you want, make sure you head to Instagram and check out his Instagram profile here at Guido Lieben, or you can also check out his Facebook page under the same name. So Guido, thank you very much. Congratulations for your incredible work. Please make sure you send us more pictures in the future. And the same goes for all of you folks. If you want to become our photographer of the week, all you have to do is to join us for this show. If you want more information about it, head to cleverphotographer.com/review. Find out the upcoming dates, the links, the information about how you can join us. And first of all, this is a great way to learn more about your images and how you can push your skills forward. And second of all, you can get the opportunity like this where you can join us and become our photographer of the week. Hello there and welcome to the second part of our photography review show. We are very excited to keep moving along. Now we have in front of us a mixed team photographers. So what it means, those are the photographers who send us a mix of different photography styles. For example, wildlife and landscape, or a portrait and travel. And we're not able to put them in a specific box, so we give them this mixed team name. So we have 8 photographers to look at, so let's jump straight into it. But before we're gonna do that, I'm going to ask you, please go ahead and like this video, comment below, and also make sure that you follow our channel so we can keep creating content like this. Now, first of all, we're gonna look at the Donna and Donna's picture. Donna, we have 2 incredible images from you. First of all, this cut together with the leaves, beautiful, beautiful capture, and very, very smart capture. So well done there. Really love this. Now, and then this one, probably one of the nicest landscape photos I've seen for a very long time now. A really kind of natural landscape photo. It has everything, the beautiful light, beautiful mixture of warm and cool colors, beautiful composition with the stunning elements, Just great capture. Really loving this. So let's have a look. Looking at the camera details, Nikon D850. On this one, the lens was 14 to 24 millimeters. Now, when you were taking a picture, the ISO 500, 24 millimeter f14 wide and had 1/800 of a second. So the ISO is a bit higher, I have to say that, but then when you kind of come closer, you don't see much noise added later. So maybe you done some good post-processing afterwards. So well done there. F14 seems to be just a touch bit high, but then I'm wondering how you were kind of managing the shutter speed. But even for a scene like this, usually I'm kind of trying to stay around F11. Just as usual, you know, when you go to a certain height, when it comes to f-stop, it kind of starts to reintroduce some of the noise and softness back. So just keep an eye on that. Anyway, looking at it like this, I think a beautiful light, great sharpness all the way through, lots of beautiful details, very lovely texture in the sky, and all in all, great capture. Now, talking about this one, so same camera, Nikon D850, different lens, 28 to 300. Now, the details on this one, ISO 500, 300 millimeters lens, so super zoomed in, f5.6, 1/160th of a second. Now, this one kind of makes sense. I'm sensing a little lower light situation right here with the ISO 500. I mean, it's a little bit higher, but it's okay. With the 300 millimeters, obviously really punched in. F5.6, creating really nice depth, with the leaves being a little bit out of focus, and then the whole sharpness and the focus goes on the face of the cat. So well done there. And 1/160th of a second, just to make sure that the cut stays nice and sharp, and it worked very well. So technically, both of the images, very well done. Keep an eye on the ISO, and that's about it. Super cool. Now, staying with this one, when it comes to composition, I love what you done here. Really nice composition with the focus on the face of the cat. The leaves really carefully positioned, and I was kind of wondering if the leaves were actually there or if you add them in a post-processing. Either way, I think it really works, and it's very nicely done. Now, when it comes to composition on this one, everything is here. Beautiful leading lines, beautiful flow, different kind of texture, creating really nice depth together with the different elements. A beautiful sky with lots of colors and lots of clouds. So it's just all in all, just very well done. Now, post-processing, absolutely nothing I could add to this. It's very well done. It's very natural, but very powerful. And in overall, I'm very happy with it. Again, one of the nicest landscape I've seen for quite some time now. Now, coming back to this picture, when it comes to post-processing, my only thing is that it really seems like the green tint is really leaking inside of the cat's face. And I think by removing that, you could get a little bit more contrast between the two elements. And how to do it is really simple. You can use the masking, maybe a brush. Then inside of the brush, you make sure that you're on auto mask. And then let's just shoulder overlay, and let's just paint anywhere other than the leaves and the eye. Something like this, I think. Remove the eye in a second. So this is what I would do. Make the brush a little smaller, and we can remove it from the leaves here. Definitely from the eye, because we want the eye to stay green. A little bit from here. That's about it. And then we can switch off the overlay, and then we can add a little bit of pink. And what it does, it actually removes the green tint, and it makes it even more contrasty. I think that works really well. And then maybe I would just add one more radial gradient and create something like this, and invert it and just bring the exposure down a little bit. So something like this is just something to add from me, so you have another tip. Other than that, Donna, excellent captures, well done. Thank you very much for sending them over, and take care. Moving on the next photographer, we have Evgeny. Evgeny, thank you so much for sending us your photos. Always pleasure to see them. In this case, this one I'm going to review on the group for you. So we'll jump over that one and we'll focus on the two animals here. So we have the squirrel in her house right here. So well done there. She's a little bit out of focus. She's a little bit soft, so we can talk about it after. But she has a lovely background and a blur behind her. Now, this is very smartly done with a lovely composition, placing the animal in the kind of space between the two different curtains. Well done. A great job there. So let's have a look at it. Starting here with the kind of technical details on the camera. Let's see. Can here. Pentax camera, ISO 270 millimeters, 1/125th of a second. I think the setting seems to be very good, creating really nice sharpness. A touch of blur on those curtains, which I think works very well here, just adding a little bit more of a contrast into the image. And all in all, I think technically it's quite well done with a good sharpness on the cat, and well done there. Now talking about this one, lovely bokeh, lovely blur at the back, which is creating a really nice background and really nice color contrast between the subject and the background. However, the squirrel herself is a little bit soft and a little bit out of focus. So now I'm not going to make a huge deal out of it because I've seen many of your pictures of the squirrel, so I know that you know how to keep them sharp, but it's just something to kind of keep an eye on for the future. From your camera setting, ISO 400, 170 millimeter lens, 1/125th of a second. Obviously with longer lens, it can get a little tricky to get the sharpness right. Just kind of looking at it, you get seems like the most sharpness is on the house, but all in all, that's where we are. Now talking about composition, this is very well done. It's very kind of storytelling with full animal being there, looking at you. The piece of her house, I think it works very well, and together I think it's very well done. Now talking about composition on this one, I actually really like it. I wouldn't do anything differently. I think again the subject is clear. It's very kind of creative way to show her. It's something a little bit different, and I think it works very well here. Now when it comes to post-processing, I would push the contrast here in the light a little bit, just to get a little bit more contrast. Maybe push the black down as well, and definitely do a vignette. So something like this, and I think that creates really nice and strong image. And on this one, nothing. I think it has a nice natural white balance, a very kind of pleasing light, very nice highlights and shadow and exposure. So all in all, Evgeny, this one, just a little bit of work on the sharpness. The other one, very creative, and I'm very impressed by it. So thank you very much. Send us more pictures and take care. Moving on, the next photographer, we have a Laurie Griezmann. Laurie, 2 pictures this week. Impressive eagle right here. And then this massive, huge, very impressive mountain. So starting with the bird, let's have a look at your camera data. So Canon 5D Mark II, the lens 150 to 600 millimeters. I wonder what's the size of this, and weight as well. That must be some lens. So ISO 400, 600 millimeters, f9, 1/500th of a second. So obviously trying to keep everything nice and sharp. f9 with that 600 millimeters is probably just about right, keeping everything nice and sharp all the way through. So well done there. ISO 400, it is what it is. It seems like very kind of bright situation. So I wonder why you went for kind of higher ISO, but maybe just to keep it nice and steady. Maybe if you want, you can leave a comment under and let us know why, but other than that, it's still a great capture. Even technically the sharpness is there. The light is a little bit harsh, creating kind of darker shadows, but it's still beautiful capture. Now talking about this one, again Canon 5D Mark II, this time on same lens, 70 to 300, ISO 100, so perfect. 70 millimeters lens for f9, 1/320th of a second. So technically perfect setting, exactly what I would do to start with. Now looking at the image, there is lots of sharpness all the way through. I really like that. Kind of a little bit flat light altogether, but we already talked about that, so there's no need for that. It's still very lovely capture, and I think it's very impressive. Now talking about composition, obviously it's all about the rock, which is clearly visible. I think the trees help to create a sense of scale, so that works together as well. Maybe a little bit of dodge and burn to create a little bit more contrast on the rocks would help, but all in all, I think it's a lovely capture with great kind of feel and clear message of what you're trying to show. On this one, when it comes to composition, I actually like that the eagle is kind of looking away from frame. I think it's a bit unusual, and I think it adds a little more interest to it. Of course, the blue background, when it's as blue as this, it's not the most interesting thing ever, but the bird itself takes all the credit, and it's just gorgeous. And the way you capture it, I think it's very, very nice. Now, talking about post-processing on this one, I would just... I don't know. I think it looks good for me. You could add a little bit of texture to him just to make sure that he stands out even more. Basically, just right here, you know, just a little bit, like a little touch of that, just like this. And I would leave it, you know, it's quite natural, it's quite nice. Obviously, a little bit of contrast. Maybe bring down the exposure just a touch, not on the brush though. Am I doing? Look at me. Light, exposure down a little bit, just a touch, and bring up the contrast, and that's about that. Now, talking about this one and a post-processing, first, there is a really visible part here which you need to kind of have a look at. I don't know if you were doing some kind of cloning or replacement here, but it's just like really visible how it kind of goes away. So that's one piece to look at. And another part to look at is here, there's some kind of repetitive moments and also quite sharp edges on different parts here. So again, just something to kind of look at and try to make it as less visible as possible. So that's about it. Other than that, as I say, all it needs is a little bit of contrast and some local adjustment, probably with the brush, just kind of creating just kind of different interesting light. Strong, but maybe at least something like this. Adding a little bit of extra light and extra contrast to it. Anyway, Laurie, thank you very much for sending us your photos. It's always a pleasure. Please take care and send us more of your pictures in the future. So, moving to the next photographer, we have a Peter, we have two pictures from you right here. One of this beautiful valley with the roads and trucks and beautiful sky and beautiful light. And then we have this one again with beautiful light, almost silhouette-like, being backlit from behind, playing volleyball or whatever it is. Great, both of them great images. So let's jump straight into them. So starting here, let's have a look at the technical details of the image. This was a Nikon D750, so lens 24-70, ISO 200, which is fine, 32 millimeters, f13, 1/800th of a second. So obviously pushing the shutter speed up to make sure that everyone is sharp, which really work out here, and it's well done. Beautiful glow on the sun, so that's really nicely done as well. And all in all, technically very well handled image. Now moving on this one, when it comes to your technical data, ISO 200, f11, 1/320th of a second on a Nikon D300 again, 24-70 lens. ISO 200, I think it's perfectly manageable even in this case. Not extra noise really that I would notice, so well done there. F11 for this scene is perfect, making sure everything is sharp, but still getting the best out of your lens, so it completely makes sense. And then 1/320th of a second to make sure that the cars are all sharp and all there. So I think that's very well done as well. So all in all, great light, beautiful, sharp image, full of lots of texture, well done. Now, when it comes to composition, I would maybe crop it a little bit tighter, just kind of get a radius of this part and maybe a little bit of the road. So I would maybe do something like this, which makes it even more powerful, a little bit like a panoramic view. And I think that helps a lot. I think what helps are these trucks creating kind of sense of scale. So all in all put together, I think it's very, very nice. Again, the kind of different shades and different textures and size of the rocks also help to create the depth and altogether creating a great image. Now, talking about this one, composition wise, I think it really works. The message is clear. The boys are playing, being kind of backlit right next to the beach. It's just a nice mixture of things. I think the most important in this image is the message and the subject, and that really works. Of course, the sun is added value, and altogether it works. So well done there, Peter. Post-processing on this one, nothing to add. I would leave it the way it is. Just great. On this one, nothing neither. I can't really come out with anything I would do with the image, which I think is great. It doesn't come that often, and you just done very, very well, Peter. So thank you very much for sending us your images. If you have more of them, make sure you send them over. We would love to see them. And until then, take care. Okay, so time to look at another photographer. We're moving on, going into Rene. Rene, we have 2 images from you, and now this beautiful bird flying. Great capture. And this one with the lonely tree, with the guys kind of paddling behind. So let's have a look at it right away. So talking about the technical data on this one, Olympus camera, ISO 200, 40 millimeters, f9, 1/10 of a second. So when it comes to the camera setting, nothing really wrong there. I think what maybe more of the issue was the time of the day. The light doesn't seem to be super interesting, and also the colors are really kind of unsaturated. Also, when I kind of zoom in, you can see how this is almost like a watercolor effect or something. It really lost all the sharpness there. So that is a little bit of a shame. Also, I think as the lonely tree goes, it's a shame that you can't really see the reflection. I think that would help. But even without the reflection, I think for the framing, it would be helpful, as it is main subject, to get a little bit more space on the top. I think that would be really helpful there. But the tree is sharp. There is a little bit of depth created by obviously the background. I think the 2 people give us a little bit of a sense of scale on the image, and they fill some of the blank spaces. So together, technically, it's actually well captured. Now, talking about this one, this is same camera again, ISO 100 millimeters lens, f4, 1/640th of a second. So what I like on this image is obviously the sharpness all the way through. No noise. You kept the ISO nice and down. That's great as well. The background is really nice. It works very well. The kind of blurry background, the bird in a flight. So well done there. I'm very impressed, Rene, about this one. So all in all, well done. Now, talking about composition, obviously there is not much more things you could do here. You wish there would be more space around the actual animal, but then as a part of maybe like a little series of the bird, I think it works quite well. So together, actually, the subject is clear, the message is clear. I think it's quite well done. Now, talking about this one, I think there could have been different things you could have done with it. Again, as I say, more space on the top would be helpful. Trying to see if the reflection could be used is another thing. The 2 guys aren't exactly sharp neither, so that's another thing you could maybe work with. I think the contrast between their really saturated clothes and the rest of the really unsaturated image is also a bit too visible. So, I mean, this is a great example of an image which would work really well in black and white, I think. And that's maybe what we're going to try to do with it. Let's just kind of try to turn it into black and white. And from here, what I would do, I would maybe push the contrast a little bit. Push down the blacks to see if that would help. Just something like this. And then we can select the sky. Maybe blow it even more to get something like this. We want a little bit of texture in it, or really blow it. We can also bring down the clarity to make it nice and glowy and take it from there. So that creates really nice contrast between the tree and the background. And then you can take a brush and just add additional contrast to some part of the image. So maybe something like this and this. And you don't want to do it that strong, but maybe something like this and something like this. So that's about it. That's what I would do with this image when it comes to post-processing, and see where to take it from there. Obviously, in Photoshop, you could add extra space on the top, and I think it would help in some way. So that's maybe something to think of for the next try. On this one, nothing to add. It's very natural. It's very like a National Geographic-like, so I really like it. All in all, I think it works very well, Rene. It's very well done, and with a little bit of maybe exposure up and maybe a little vignette, I think you get some really beautiful capture. So Rene, well done. A little bit of maybe just thinking of for the future about the editing. Other than that, very impressed. Thank you for joining us, and send us more pictures in the future if you can. Moving on, the next photographer, we have a Stevie. Stevie, we have 2 images from you. So first we have these birds running on the beach, plus one flying and one poking from behind. And then we have this horse in front of a really strong sunset with a beautiful light behind. So let's have a look at it. Starting with this one, looking at the technical data. So Canon camera, ISO 400, 90 millimeters lens, f9, 1/1250th of a second. So for that reason, for the shutter speed, obviously everyone is nice and sharp, which I think works very well here, including the bird flying. The ISO 400 does bring a little bit of noise, which is visible in these parts and also on the animals themselves. So just keep an eye on that. And f9, well, you could lower it a little bit and that would maybe give you less ISO, but it's something just you need to kind of learn and work with for the future TV. So don't worry about it too much. The light isn't greatest. It's a little bit harsh, creating kind of a little bit strong shadows. So something to think of. Obviously, it would be nicer if it would be a little bit diffused. And as well, the light creates really kind of bright parts on the water there. So again, something to think of. Now, moving on the composition, talking about this one, what I would do, I would probably remove the kind of rest of this bird right here, because I think if it's not there, it doesn't need to be here neither. So that can be really easily done like this here. Or it could be done in Photoshop really easily as well, depending on, maybe something like this, just to kind of give an idea. What I really like is the movement. I think that works. I like how they centered. I like that one of them fly. That's really cool. I think if there would be a little bit of extra space on the side, it would be even cooler. But still, I think it's a great capture when it comes to composition. Well done. Now on this one, when it comes to composition, I would go a little bit closer. So I would make it even tighter and maybe go for something like this. That's what I would do. Now, obviously, when it comes to the sky, it looks like you've done some sky replacement. It's a little bit visible. The gray line between the horizon and the sky is a little bit visible there. And then the light leak into the actual animals is really strong as well. So just something to kind of work on for the future. Other than that, composition wise, I think it's very nice. I like how the sun is positioned between the two people, and altogether I think it works quite well. Now when it comes to post-processing on this one, what I would do is I would use some masking and actually just kind of close the foreground here. So I would do something like this and bring the exposure down. I think that would look so much more natural. I would do something similar from the top to bring more attention towards the people. But before doing anything else, I would see how I can fix the sky to make it more natural and believable, Stevie. Talking about this one, I think you could turn it to black and white if you would want to. I would, first of all, bring down the exposure a little bit. I think it's a bit too bright for me. Keep an eye on the whites, keep an eye on your blacks, and maybe add a little bit of contrast. And while doing that, in effects, bring down the clarity to make it a little bit softer, and you can add little vignette maybe to bring the attention towards the birds. So Stevie, two very impressive images which need a little bit of extra work, but still, thank you so much for sharing them with us. Take care and send us more pictures in the future. Moving on, Vjacheslav, we have two images from you again. Beautiful winter wonderland here with lots of beautiful snow. And this gorgeous cat. So let's talk about them. Talking about this one, technical part. Sadly, there is no data here. Let's have a look at the cat. The cat neither. So talking about this one, everything looks sharp, so that's good. Now, there are kind of strange artifacts in the sky. You get these kind of little dots in this part. You also have this kind of brush-like space here. And then you have a different brushes here. So just something to kind of look at and see why it's like that. Sometimes it's just a simple JPEG transition, but just have a look at it anyway and keep an eye and see if you can maybe fix that. Other than that, technically, it's a quite nice light, quite nicely diffused, no strong shadows. The sharpness is good, so well done there. Talking about this one, very nice light here. The sharpness is nice depth, with obviously this part being all in focus and then slowly kind of gradually going into the softness. So well done there. And technically lovely detail in the eye here. All in all, very well done. Now, when it comes to post-processing, when it comes to composition here, this is a kind of simple scene. Obviously, the subject is clear here. The message is clear. It's all about the cute cat. So there is no need to create any kind of depths and so on. I think it really works. I think it's very, very pretty. I think the contrast between the eyes and the rest of the colors works very well here. And it's just very well done. On this one, when it comes to composition, my only thing I would add is this part here, which is a little bit distracting. It's something what we call confusing foreground element. And it's usually items like buildings, people, houses, cars. And it's basically something what's just poking very partially from the direction and location, which don't really make sense. That's it. Which don't really make sense, and most of the time they can't really be removed. You would have to position yourself differently. If they can, they're usually removed by cropping or different cropping, and it's usually kind of helpful. The reason why they are a little bit distracting is because us as a photographers, by being there, we recognize what it is, where person who never been in this location before will look at this and will be a little bit distracted with the item, not knowing what it's there for, and so on. Other than that, I think the composition is very nice. I think, again, the natural contrast created by the white compared to the orange works very well here. I think the kind of minimal white look to it works very well here, and it's very well done. Now, talking about post-processing on this one, first of all, I would look at the sky to see what's going on there, because it looks a little bit strange to me. Next thing I would do is I would push the contrast to bring out even more of the orange, which can also be done by bringing down the blacks a little, and maybe in color pushing the orange in saturation up. So that's about this. And on this one, when it comes to post-processing, maybe just a little bit of a vignette down, and that's about it. Just leave it. I think it's a very, very cute thing. Obviously, next time maybe try to keep the ear on. Another thing I would do, especially when it comes to this tight shot, it's always good to kind of clean it up. So really just kind of remove these little crumbs around her or him. I think always helps just to make it even more clean. Vjacheslav, thank you very much for sending us your images. It's a pleasure to review them. Take care. If you have more of them, make sure you send them maybe already for the next week's episode. And finally, we're gonna move to Zdenek. Zdenek, I have 2 images from you. One super panorama. I wonder how many pictures was this, because that looks like a lots of work. And then the elephants. And I think the elephants are probably one of my favorite pictures I saw from you so far. Super well done, very, very atmospheric, very storytelling, and very well done, Zdenek. So congratulations on that. So talking about technical data on it, obviously the ISO is a little bit higher, so you're 800. And when you zoom in, you can really kind of see it all around on the animal, as well as in these parts. As you know, we talked about it last time, I think. When you push the ISO high, you're starting to lose the details even inside of the plants, and I think that's totally the case here. So that's just something to kind of look at. f5.6, so obviously you went as low as possible with the kind of distance of the lens. 1/320th of a second, just to make sure that the animals are sharp. Now the elephants are sharp, and you have a beautiful glow from the sun, so that really works. It's just the noise, and the noise altogether is something what we can maybe adjust a little bit in a post-processing, but together it's still a great capture. Now, talking about this one, again, if maybe you can leave me in the comments how many pictures was this, because that seems like a lot of work, but it's very, very powerful, you know. First, it's a great light, mix of lots of nice saturation, colors, contrast. Here, the light and shadows kind of bringing out the mountains. I think it all works. And looking at the setting, ISO 200, f13, 1/200th of a second, I think it all makes sense. I think for this picture, for example, you wouldn't need to have the shutter speed on 200th of a second, so I think you could go with the ISO to 100. f13, for me, is just like f11, so it just depends what you are trying to do, but 200 isn't a big deal. That shouldn't really introduce much noise for you anyway, and together it's just nicely done. Now, when it comes to composition, I really like it. I think it's very powerful. My only wish would be that the background or the mountain would be a little bit more dominant. Because it's kind of hidden behind the foliage, it's not as dominant as I would wish for. I don't know if it's because you were low or maybe if you couldn't get any higher. Because if you would be a little bit higher, I think the mountain would stand up a little bit more and maybe it would become even more powerful. Now, talking about this one, when it comes to composition, first, there is nothing else you could do about the animals. Obviously, this one could be a little bit closer, but I think the way that they position, really kind of showing the size, scale, the depth, I think it just works. On the road, it looks quite cool as well, creates nice float, and it works very well, Zdenek. Now, when it comes to post-processing, what I would do, I would bring down a little bit more the exposure. So that way, a little bit of the noise disappear. Next thing, I would use the masking, linear gradient, and definitely close the road. So you get something like this, lots of the noise disappear, and we are really focusing just on the animal themselves. Similarly, you could do something like that with the background, but let's not worry about that. You could just take a brush and maybe add a little bit of exposure on some parts of them. Parts here, just kind of working with the different contrast. And then, of course, as usual, in the details itself, you can push the sharpening a little bit to 20 and then zoom in and double check and maybe add a little bit more of the noise reduction and also the color. And this is where you would kind of get, you can in effects bring a little bit of texture back. You could also just paint it on the animals themselves by using again the masking and create new mask brush. And here on the brush, we could push the texture and maybe just kind of brush the texture specifically in the darker areas where we are a little bit worried about the noise. And this is what you come out with, Zdenek. Lovely, lovely result. Definitely something you could print and have it above your fireplace or in the bedroom. Just a great capture. And again, I think one of the nicest I saw from you. So well done. Congratulations. Thank you for sending it over. And thank you for constantly joining us for the show. It's a pleasure to have you with us. Take care. And I can't wait to see more pictures in the near future. And the same goes for all of you folks. Thank you very much for joining us for this week's episode of a photography review show. If you want to join us for the next show, you can head to our website, cleverphotographer.com/review. And that's where you can find all the upcoming dates, links, and also information about how you can become the next photographer of the week and how you can get extra feedback on your photos and keep moving forward in your photography. Thank you very much for joining me this week. Take care. And until next week, keep shooting.